Welcome to the Vibrantly You podcast. We're your hosts, Megan Martineau
and Caitlin Cipriano. In this podcast, we talk about fitness and nutrition on your motherhood journey. Whether you are trying to conceive, pregnant, postpartum, or beyond, you are welcome here.
Nothing is off limits, and our goal is to support you in this important season of life so that you can feel vibrantly you. As a reminder, this information is not medical advice. Please see the show notes for more details. Welcome back to the Vibrantly You podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about the 4 mistakes that new moms make when returning to exercise postpartum and what to do instead. This is kind of a hot topic in the pre and postnatal space. A lot of people are very eager to get back into exercising after having a baby, which is totally understandable. You're feeling very sedentary, you're wanting to move, you're also dealing with this brand new body that is unfamiliar and feeling weak and hunched over and squishy and all the things that you're not used to. And so it totally makes sense that you're eager and wanting to get back into exercise. But it is so important postpartum to make sure that we are getting back into exercise slowly and strategically. So I commonly see 4 different types of mistakes that people make. And I want to go through those today and then talk about why it's a mistake and also what you should be doing instead. So let's jump right into it with mistake number 1, which is walking too much too soon. I find that this is confusing for people because you often hear the recommendation of get up and get moving after you've given birth, walking is important. And yes, this is true. We don't necessarily want to just be laying in bed all day, every day, although there is the 5-5-5 rule, which is 5 days in bed with minimal movement, 5 days on the bed. So these are things like sitting, maybe some light stretching, and 5 days around the bed, like gentle movement around the house. Basically, the thought of this is to help you really prioritize healing. So some people gravitate more towards that. Then there's also the advice of get up, walk, move around. And so then people are so confused because they're like, what the heck am I supposed to do? I think that if you want to do the 5-5-5 rule, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I do find, though, that a lot of people get kind of antsy and they're just not wanting to stay in bed that long, and that's fine too. And walking around your house, doing normal activities within your house counts as enough walking in the beginning. The problem that I see people making is going out for long walks outside when they are a few days or even a week postpartum. I have seen people walking 2 to 3 miles within those first 2 weeks postpartum. And that is a big no-no because you do still want to be prioritizing healing, even if you're not laying in your bed. So the reason for this is walking puts a lot of downward pressure on the pelvic floor. Whether you had a C-section or a vaginal birth, we want to be really mindful of that intra-abdominal pressure, especially with a vaginal birth. Those tissues have been stretched and they need to have time to repair. So walks should really be added in slowly and then slowly increased. So I typically recommend at a week postpartum, you're starting out with short walks, 5 minutes. Maybe you're walking down to the end of your driveway to grab some mail and back, or you're just walking within your house, doing household things, not going outside and going on long walks. You can slowly start to increase this and work your way up. I would pay special attention to how your pelvic floor is feeling. If you're starting to feel added pressure, just a general heaviness in your pelvic floor, that's definitely a sign you're doing too much. And sometimes people can even feel this just from a lot of standing postpartum. And so that would even be some good information of okay, maybe I shouldn't be doing long walks right now if I'm just feeling this heaviness feeling, just from standing. If you do start to feel this heaviness feeling, something that can be really helpful is laying down on your back and elevating your hips. That like gravity, or anti-gravity, I guess, can help to relieve some of that pressure. But overall, with walks, I recommend you really start slow and short and then gradually increase over time. Number two, skipping breath work and rehab type exercises. This is a big mistake that I see people make. And I feel like people often skip over it because it's boring. And if you are used to higher intensity workouts and exercises, and you like sweating and lifting heavy weights and really feeling like you're accomplishing something, doing breath work and rehab type exercises is so dull. So I understand why people skip over it. However, this is a huge, huge mistake. How we breathe changes in pregnancy and postpartum fundamentally. I know I've talked about this quite a bit on the podcast. You need to take time to relearn how to breathe. I even find when I am working with clients throughout their entire pregnancy journey, we spend so much time on breath work in pregnancy. Even when they have mastered this in pregnancy, early on postpartum, there's still a disconnect and it takes them time to relearn it. I do find that they relearn it a lot faster than someone who maybe was not practicing this during pregnancy. But the fact that you can be doing this all throughout pregnancy and there's still a disconnect postpartum is not to be overlooked, right? Like there's so much that happens at the end of pregnancy, throughout the birth process, and it disrupts some of that mind body connection. So it makes sense that you need to take time to relearn how to do this. And with the breathing, 360 breathing, we are coordinating the diaphragm, the abdominal wall, the pelvic floor. We also want to get mobility into the rib cage, specifically the side and back rib cage. This can be really hard postpartum, and a lot of people have to spend a lot of time on this. The reason being, if we can't get good mobility and expansion in the side and back rib cage, all of that pressure is going to follow the path of least resistance, which in postpartum people, this is usually the core, the abs. So specifically the linea alba, which is that tissue that runs between your six-pack muscles, which has already been weakened because it's been stretched in pregnancy. If you have diastasis recti, you're going to have even a bigger gap. So that's going to be forced out there, or it's going to be forced down into your pelvic floor. And if you're already having pelvic floor issues, this is not great either. We really want to get mobility and expansion in the side rib cage and back rib cage. And this can take a lot of practice. Starting with this postpartum makes a world of difference months and years down the road. People that skip this may feel fine starting out, getting back into their workout routine, but in a lot of cases, it catches up with them eventually, and they need to go back to the basics and work on these breathing patterns. Because a lot of times they find later down the road, their diastasis recti isn't healing, or they're still having pelvic floor issues that don't seem to be improving. And it all comes back to this, to the breath work. Then when we're thinking about rehab type exercises, getting certain muscle groups to activate and fire and engage that were maybe not as activated during pregnancy is really important. Things like hamstrings, glutes, your serratus, which is in your mid back. These things are all really important, again, as you start to progress and build strength. So even though these things are really, really boring to do early postpartum, I promise you they are worth it. Number 3, the mistake that I see is people doing nothing for the first 6 weeks of postpartum, and then once they get that all clear from their doctor, jumping back into pre-pregnancy exercises or workout routines. This happens a lot, and it's just not great. You're actually more likely to hurt yourself working out postpartum than you are in pregnancy, because you are coming from this weakened, deconditioned state, and then jumping into your pre-pregnancy workout routine is more likely to lead to injury. It really needs to be a gradual return. So this means starting with the breath work and the rehab stuff. Like I said, basic movement patterns, using your body weight, focusing on your form and your posture. then adding in resistance, maybe some resistance bands, and then slowly build up your weight. You will get back there quickly. It's not going to be like if you were starting out from scratch, never working out before, but it still needs to be slow and strategic. And I don't love people doing nothing for those first 6 weeks. After about 2 weeks, you can start adding in like the breath work, some of those rehab type exercises, things that are very low level. That way, when you get that 6 week clearance, you've already started, you know? You can, of course, wait and start at the 6 week mark, but that means that at that 6 week mark, you're starting with the breath work, with the body weight. So it's really important to do those things regardless of where you're at, like how many weeks post birth. And then the last number 4 mistake that I see people making postpartum is running before 12 weeks postpartum and without strategically strength training and doing impact training. Now, generally speaking, in the postpartum space, we say that you should not start running postpartum until you are a minimum of 12 weeks. A lot of people start running before then. And even though 12 weeks is the minimum time frame, because this allows the pelvic floor to naturally heal, those tissues to heal, you really, really, really should be strength training before you get back into running, specifically working on single leg strength. This is a huge thing that people skip over, and single leg strength is required for running because running is a single leg activity. You should really also be doing impact training. So, working on jumping, absorbing impact in a controlled setting where you can pay attention to pelvic floor symptoms or like hip pain or things like that rather than like going out for a 1 mile run. You know, if you're in a more controlled setting and you're trying a couple jumps and different techniques and things like that, that's a better place to start. So, if you are someone who wants to get back into running postpartum, you should at least be waiting 12 weeks. In that like 6 week to 12 week postpartum time frame, you can certainly be working on your total body strengthening, working on that single leg strength. But you definitely need to be at least 12 weeks postpartum, and you should really be working on strengthening and single leg strengthening and adding in some of that controlled impact training before you begin running. And just as a little bonus, I'll throw in here, I really think that you should go see a pelvic floor physical therapist who is doing a hands-on assessment, maybe even an internal assessment to look at your pelvic floor functioning to see if you are in fact ready to start running at 12 weeks postpartum. It's really more important to get the all clear from them than it is from an OBGYN or a midwife with running specifically. Okay, so those are the 4 mistakes that new moms make when returning to exercise and what to do instead. I hope that you found this episode helpful. If you did, definitely share it with a mom friend who might need to hear it. Leave us a review below. You can connect with me on Instagram at Vibrant Mama Wellness if you have any follow-up questions or want me to touch on anything specifically, do a deeper dive on any of these things. And we will be back next week for a solo episode with Caitlin.